Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you, of course, who are able to participate live on this channel, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, of course, are the co hosts. And today, on this Friday, we are going to talk about Shogun. Shogun, a television series that just ended. It's a incredible 10 episode arc. And of course, this being a tabletop role playing channel, we're going to discuss Shogun and especially how we can use that for our tabletop role playing experiences, especially in the oft forgotten niche of science fiction, because that's what we kind of talk about here in this section of the interwebs amongst the community. So uh, Shogun has finished its run, and it is an excellent television series based on a novel by the same name. There was also a short run miniseries back in the 80s. I don't suggest anyone watch that just because of the differences in time and focus of the particular characters. But now that the show has finished its run, I believe that it is excellent. And the show, uh, it is often compared to Game of Thrones, which in our modern context is like one of like the top five television shows that deals with essentially people talking in rooms. And although George R. R. Martin is a very intelligent individual who's been influenced by other things, uh, the novel, James Clavell's novel, is award winning and has been around since the 80s. And I'm sure this book, it's a historical fiction. Shogun influenced him, George R. R. Martin, and many other writers concerning its characters. And I think there's a lot we can learn from this. Of course, in uh, our tabletop role playing, we can learn from a lot of other um, artistic professions and hobbies that are not related to it, simply because within the tabletop um, genre of games, we are in many ways are the gravity of so many other artistic things. Maybe not dance so much, but so many other. Well, maybe even dance. Um, so many other artistic endeavors, and of course, one of those is novelizations, screenwriting, world building, and this uh, this show is an excellent portrayal of people talking in rooms and how much tension can be built, how many stakes can be given based on that. And so let's get into it. So um, uh, we have to let us all be on the same page. So I called up an article here. I like to use my little Wikipedias, whether Wikipedia is true or not doesn't matter. We're going to use that as our basis. So of course, Shogun is an American historical drama television miniseries created by Rachel Kondo and Justin Marks. It is based on the 1975 novel by James Clavell. Shogun follows the collision of two ambitious men from different worlds. John Blackthorne, a risk-taking English sailor who ends up shipwrecked in Japan, and a land whose unfamiliar culture will ultimately redefine him. We also have Lord Tornaga, a shrewd, powerful daimyo at odds with his own dangerous political rivals, and Lady Mariko, or in lazy tongue terms, Mariko, a woman with invaluable skills but dishonorable family ties who must prove her value and allegiance. Clavell's Shogun is historical fiction. The character of Blackthorne is loosely based on the historical English navigator William Adams, who in Japan rose to become a samurai under Tokugawa. I'm going to butcher this name. I Yasu, a powerful daimyo who later became the founder and first shogun of the Tokugawa shogunate. I Ieyasu is the basis for the character of Yoshi Toranaga. And what is amazing in this television show is of course, we get to see this period of time in Japanese culture from the eyes of our visitor. And our visitor is John Blackthorne. He comes from England and has sailed around the world to find the Japans, as it's called, the barbarians. And of course, this is during a period of time where anybody who wasn't you was some kind of savage or what have you, uh, uh, primarily from the written exploits and the treatment from people that came from Europe and went to travel around the world. And we are instantly introduced to a number of rival factions. And so, one world building thing is to establish the factions and what they want. And uh, one of the great things about role playing games is you can have a faction that is adversarial to the players and what they want to do, but isn't an enemy. So a faction essentially is um, what does one plus more want in a particular time. So um, this could be a simple NPC that wants something. Usually it's a want or a need and what's in the way. And when the players learn what that need or want, desire is, and what's in the way, the players can either, by their own actions, add to the complication for that person or greater number of people, whether, and when I say greater number, 5 people, 2,000 people, 1.5 million people, based on their faction. And when I say a faction can be government, it could be business related, religious related. And so in Shogun, our character arrives um, beaten, destitute, starving, scurvied on the shores of Japan, and he is Protestant of the religion. He's a Protestant sailor, technically a pirate. And when he arrives there, he knows that the Catholic Church has um, gained a foothold in Japan. And so, not only is it just a foothold in terms of trade, he finds out that there are Japanese people who have converted to Catholicism. So, instantly, our character is at odds with the Catholic Church because he's Protestant, um, which also means that the Catholic sailors have a monopoly on trade with Japan. And so, that is one feature. Another one that is used expertly in the show that is not often used in role playing games, but or not used effectively in role playing games, but strangely enough, there is a simple way to implement this, and this is the language barrier. So, in terms of the language barrier in Shogun, we have, and I can imagine how complicated this is for our armchair novelists and writers out there, and that is you have two characters who cannot speak the same language, and we must have a translator to translate both parties. Now, oftentimes in when we see a television show with a translator, whether there is someone speaking for someone who maybe is deaf or what have you, the translator falls into the background. They become a prop. They become part of the background and disappear. But in this televised series, our translator also has religious affiliation, political affiliation, family affiliation, has their own background, their own identity, their own purpose. And so as we are looking at the show, we're finding out that maybe the translations aren't being done uh, honestly and forthright for a number of reasons. Sometimes those reasons might be maybe I don't want to translate those exact words because I might get my ass beat. There's other reasons where I don't want to translate that because it would be disrespectful. And that intricacy of which characters are aware of what's being said and how they're able to read body language even if they don't understand the words, is pretty interesting. There's some, I don't want to say there's hits or misses, but a good excuse me, a good director will get out of their actors what the character believes is happening versus the real words that are said. And an editor, when they're in the editing room, can pick and choose the actions and reactions of people who are saying things, but they don't understand what's being said, but they're picking up on the nuance. Deadman says, in high school, ninth grade, my medieval history class watched the original miniseries. Really? The teacher had issues with the historical accuracy of the miniseries. And of course, um, Dead Man. I'm definitely not picking with you this time, and we go back and forth all the time. But right, but I will say this for those who there's plenty of YouTube channels out there who do analyses of the accuracy of the history, and there's also people who have read the books and talk about things left out of books. In both contexts, none of those things matter in a television show. And what I mean by that is history, like documentaries, are are preferably based on the real life events of the things that really did happen at that particular time. Dramatizations, while they may be based on real things, are not real. It is a drama. These are words and actions and lighting and music and costumes that are supposed to give us a feeling of what happened at that time in a shortened, condensed region. For example, most scripts are at least one third, if not one quarter, the length of an entire novel. You can have brings me to the novel. Books are always better than books are statistically always better than our any other media that takes place. Why? Because when we read a book, we do casting in our own head, the pace of the words that are spoken, the accent the words are spoken in, the costumes that are being worn, the weather in the background. All of those things are made in our own heads, and it is nearly impossible for an external element to match what is in our own heads. If we were to make a movie based on um, everyone reading the same book, and you had 1,000 people read a book, you'd have 1,000 different versions of that same thing. So uh, both can go into far more depth than a little bit. And the second part of that is that every time someone reads a book, we are creating in our own head the perfect rendition of that novel. And so books are always better than something that someone creates, because we will always have problems with the actor, the the edited words, the characters that don't show up, and things like that. So, Dead Man, you do bring up a point. I'm surprised that your ninth grade school did that. We weren't able. Well, I'm probably a bit older. This is back in the aired in like the 80s. Ninth grade. I'm trying to think. Anyway, and it also, I think the television show back in the original miniseries back in the 80s was also very focused on from the point of view of the John Blackthorne character, and this current 2024 version very much delves in. We very quickly find out that John Blackthorne, our outsider from Japan, is much more of a tool, a a living, breathing point of chaos in a world where order and structure is very important. So we quickly learn the rules of this society in Shogun. And what I love about learning the rules of this place is, well, those rules sometimes the exotic nature of Japan, which has captured the attentions of um, us here in um, the English speaking world, even till today, has always captured our imaginations, because there are from everything from the architecture to the costumes and language, and especially the culture, is so different from the individualization that the English speaking world has very much embraced. And so we have a culture here that um, has embraced collectivism and saving face and pride and duty and honor as the pinnacles of society rather than individualism and a little bit of chaos, even if even if both cultures are going after the same things: peace, safety, tranquility, status, power, and that kind of thing. But how you get there is much, much different. And it has our main character. It boggles his mind that unto death one's word is one's bond, and there is value placed in the words given to a thing, so that words spoken and actions, promises spoken in this culture are extremely important. Now we do have a number, actually a large number of games that exemplify Japanese culture. But I will have to say the probably the most enduring version of that, and there are many iterations of it, is Legend of the Five Rings. And Legend of the Five Rings is a fictional world Rokugawa Rokugan that takes place. And when you play a character from different clans, those clans are named primarily after animals like crane and crab, lion and dragon. And it is a role playing game. I think Fantasy Flight Games has a version of it. There are actually different rules for this game. I believe there's a fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons version of Legend of the Five Rings. But if you really want to delve into it, it has a very interesting gaming system, and it has five elements that represent your character's capabilities. Let's see. Let's before I start making before I start making mistakes here. Let's see. I want to know the character sheet. Yeah, I want the character sheet. So, um, on the character sheet, you have basically five rings, and those five rings denote the five rings, Legend of the Five Rings. Those five rings represent your character. And what's interesting about it is not just the fact that it's, yes, it is, and it's very difficult to see here. Let's see if I can find one that I can really zoom in on. Maybe that's very difficult to see. Maybe is this one better? Oh, that's fifth edition. Nope. That's not what we're looking at. So, for those who are familiar with statistics like strength and endurance and intelligence or something of that nature, instead, what we have is we have five elements. We have uh, earth, air, fire, and water, and as well as void. And your let's see, we can get a much better description of your statistics here. There's none that are coming up. Okay, so when you have your earth, air, fire, and water, it not only denotes your physical capability, but also denotes your social and mental capabilities. And there is empty space in the game for you to decide whether a particular stat is useful for a particular action. So Earth is very stable. It's very much tradition. It is endurance. Air is intelligence and language. Fire is action and aggression. Water is like awareness and fluidity. And then, of course, we have void. And uh, your skills fall into categories based on your earth, air, fire, water, and void. And not only is that important, but there's actually a version of Legend of Five Rings where there are two features in your on your character sheet: honor and glory, and they are at odds with each other. Honor being you hold to your word, you are duty bound, you are trustworthy, you are honest, and um, you present yourself to be someone who fits into society. And then there's glory. And glory is about your reputation, about getting um, honorifics, about performing great heroic actions, by being rising above your station and getting attention for somewhat breaking the rules to rise above your station and then being honored for such a thing, as well as the fact that there's a version of the game in which, in Legend of Five Rings, excuse me, it's not only what you're doing, it is how you are doing it, the reason why you are doing a thing that matters, and there's a numerical value attached to it. Are you doing it out of anger? Are you doing it out of lust or fear? Or are you performing this action, and why are you performing it? Are you performing it out of duty, or are you performing it out of like vanity or something? And so learning that in a culture and placing those elements and making some of those things spike in your culture, um, much like the television show Shogun, really can have your characters when they travel from location to location really tell them, like, is it important how the characters behave, the languages and honorifics they use, how about their clothing, how are they dressed, is does this new culture have uh, restrictions on um, anything from greetings to how one eats and such. We know in novelizations that gender has has a big role um, in social interactions. Maybe the players are unsure of that. There's also the possibility that in this new culture, uh, class stratification may be very important. So when your adventuring party comes together, who is the known leader? Who is the person that speaks for everyone? Um, your laborers, are there characters that are perceived as being the laborers? Maybe they're not allowed to enter into certain buildings, or cannot speak unless spoken to, or things of that nature. And our first episode of Shogun really shows that, as our regents, the most powerful people in the land, are having a, let's say, semi civilized conversation, and a loyal samurai who's sitting outside of a door is offended that his liege lord is being disrespected. And when that samurai, not giving too much away in the television show, sorry about the semi spoilers, takes a step into the room, and that foot inside of that room is as much of a disrespect as one could make, almost like slapping someone in the face or accusing these powerful regents of being dishonorable in their words and actions. Now, we all know they are being disrespectful in their words and actions, and their very thinly veiled threats, but to take a physical action against them as a lower individual, made, this person had to pay the ultimate price for themselves and their bloodline. And interesting that a single socked foot stepping into a room, and not even stepping, just coming off of their sitting seizan and just getting up on one knee, and that foot stepped in that room, and it was just like, holy shit. And the tension built in the show very much emulated that. I really appreciated that, and it was a big shock. That kind of thing was a big shock to us as a viewer, and let us know, hey, guess what? Your word and your actions mean life and death in this culture. Deadman says, not sure if this was in the modern series, like the interaction where the Blackthorn shot a bird and hung it hung it to age. Yeah, yeah. Like the interaction where the Blackthorn shot a bird and hung it to age the meat. Then a peasant took the bird down and buried it. And the security guard was about to kill the peasant for stealing Blackthorn's food, but Blackthorn stopped the guard and saved the peasant's life. It was, I know what you're talking about, but it was done differently. Okay, I'll give it away. Spoiler alert for a series that taught our character Blackthorn about words being important. So, and apparently this is a real way to prepare a meal. So in the current televised version of the show, Blackthorn is given a pheasant by Toranaga, and Toranaga, it's a gift. Toranaga is he's on his horse, and as a daimyo, he likes to go out falconing. He owns a falcon, takes the little hood off the falcon, sends the falcon out. He's giving a life lesson to his son during the time, but the falcon goes out and kills a pheasant and brings it back, and he offhandedly says, give this to the Anjin. Blackthorn is called an Anjin, which is known as a pilot. There's the Anjin is the word for pilot. He's called other things, but primarily they don't even really pronounce his name. They just call him the Anjin. He's the pilot, a open sea navigator, but that's what they call him at that time. They're known as a pilot. So he's given this pheasant, and he's at this time Blackthorn now has a home. He is Hatamoto. He is given a higher status amongst the population. He's so happy. So he hangs the pheasant outside, and this parallels the book, but it's in the mini series, but not quite. So unfortunately, because of the cleanliness of the population in this small town and village, the pheasant starts to rot. Now, it was known earlier that the cleanliness of our European visitor isn't the highest. It is mentioned, like, because they smell him and they're like, "Aren't you going to bathe?" And he's like, "Why? I already bathed once last week. Why do I need?" And they're just like, "Ugh." Well, the pheasant is rotting and it is smelling, and it's covered with flies, and even and Blackthorn is like, it hasn't gotten pungent enough yet. Like, he's happy about this. He wants to make a European meal that they would love. And unfortunately, because of the culture here, they're like, listen, we can't have rotting food. Uh, when you have a culture of people who are walking around in white socks, they keep the place pretty damn clean. And so they're constantly cleaning and sweeping and things like that's part of the culture of keeping things so very neat and clean. So the population is talking, and they're like, listen, Anjin, the bird, it smells, it stinks. And he's like, yes, I know. And they're like, well, we would like your permission to take it down. He's like, no, no, no. And this is where misinterpretation comes from. He says and translates, if you, in short, if you touch, you die. And the way he says it in his internal monologue is sarcasm. Hey, don't touch that. We've heard the sarcasm thing. Listen, if I tell you the secret, I'm going to have to kill you. They take it literally. If we touch this thing and he's Hatamoto, he's of a higher status than the rest of us, we will die if we touch it. So he leaves, and when he returns, the pheasant is gone. And everyone is sad, and he's like, what happened? They come to him, bowing before him, and they say, well, the gardener, and when I say gardener, the gardener gardened a stone and sand Zen garden, uh, their version of a garden. It is a garden, but it's one made of rocks and sand to be beautiful, tell a story. And Blackthorn and the gardener have a bit of a nice relationship. He really likes this guy. Well, that gardener is now dead. And he's like, well, what the hell happened? Well, the gardener volunteered to take your pheasant down and bury it. But because you said if anyone touches it, they'll die. So he volunteered to do it, knowing that not only was he elderly, he was also a bit sick, and did it for the betterment of everyone else. And Blackthorn is destroyed. He's like, he's just the nicest dude. Like, what the? You guys are crazy. And he hates these people because they got together and killed this old man who had a peaceful spirit, who basically was one of the people who's kind of becoming his friend and a translator for him as well. that he gave up his life to do this honorable thing. And he didn't understand the importance of it. And he's told, listen, and he's screaming like, the pheasant wasn't important. I didn't care that you took it down. I don't understand why you guys made it so serious to actually have to, murder kill one of your own people who was this innocent person. And he's told, listen, it's not that the pheasant was important. Your words gave it meaning, and that was a really great um, uh, aspect of this culture for this outsider to be told. Listen, it's not about the thing, it's about the words you gave the thing. You said, you touch, you die. So we took you at your word. That's what you meant. We're going to take you seriously. And so as the story progresses in Shogun, he realizes that his word, his actions, up until the very last episode, which is pretty interesting, how he Blackthorn begins embracing this culture and realizes, hey, listen, Toranaga, I did some things. I disrespected you. I said some words way back then that I know now were disrespectful. I should be punished for the things that I did so that others are not punished for it. I will sacrifice my life. And not saying that every role playing game needs to have such lethality when it comes to their words, but it is interesting to pick and choose different different building blocks of your culture in your world building. And for me with science fiction, I love different space habitats on moons and artificial habitats and things. And for our players to arrive in a place, let me pull something out of my ass, right? So the players arrive in a habitat filled with a couple of thousand people, maybe scientists and visitors and such. And the players arrive and they go, "Wow, this place is really nice," and everyone is greeting them with open arms, and the players feel safe. And suddenly, one or more people come up to the player's equipment, open up the player's backpacks and sealed containers and cargo, and start reaching into it, going through their stuff, taking what they want, putting it in their back pocket, and walking away with it. And the players might go, "What the hell are you doing? That's our stuff." And the residents of the habitat might go, I don't understand what those words mean. We don't own anything here. Anything on this space station is owned by anybody else. We don't have private ownership. And maybe the players realize, unfortunately, that they don't lock their doors. People can come into your room and take a piece of equipment or a novel or a game or a piece of jewelry or a nice piece of fashion and just pick it up and take it what they want. And maybe people just drop things off in a centralized location. Hey, you need a tool? Here's a Omni spanner. I don't know what an Omni spanner is, but it sits there, and when someone needs it, they take it, and when they don't need it, they put it back, and they don't ask permission. They just go ahead and take it. Maybe that's a thing that might disturb the player characters, but that could be a behavior that is possible in this place. Maybe there are a limited number of colored scarves worn by the people in this place: white, black, green, yellow, and they all designate what job function you have or what status you have. And the differences in the culture could be based on what scarf you wear around your neck. And you are assumed that they don't think people are going to lie about it. Hey, if you're wearing a purple scarf, you're a street cleaner. If you wear a green scarf, you work in a hydroponics garden. If you wear a black scarf, you're part of like a secret police force. If you wear a white scarf, you're part of a religious faction or law enforcement, or like it could be anything. If you wear a blue scarf, you're a scientist and whatnot, or something, anything. And the players may come in there without scarves on, and people look at them and scratch their head, and they reach in their pocket and they're like, "Well, I've got 3 scarves. Oh, well, you're a visitor. Here, put this orange scarf on." Right? And maybe if the players switch scarves, everyone just assumes, "Oh, you put on a purple scarf. I guess you are a street cleaner. All right. Here's trash on the floor. You clean that up." Deadman says the differences in the culture were shown in the original series when he goes back to his crew who are still eating like Europeans. Yep, nearly raw pork, lots of alcohol, etc. Yeah, they do this in this second version of the television series as well. Yeah. Deadman goes on to say, and Blackthorn has acclimated to Japanese society and is disgusted by their slovenly behavior. In the novelized version, he goes back to his crew and it is a longer interaction. Um, I don't. I remember. I did see the '80s televised series. In this version of it, it only lasts about a minute, 2 minutes long, and you are correct. Like, uh, not only does he find his crew is in like the most wretched part of, I believe it's Osaka, or maybe Edo, and it is the stinky. And even Blackthorn would have never noticed it before. But like you said, Dead Man, he has acclimated himself, and as he walks, he's led where his men are. He realized the neighborhood really smells. It stinks. Um, it's dirty and muddy. And yes, they are like drinking themselves to death. They are eating like um, stink, what in this culture would be very raw and smelly foods and things like that. And that while they are being taken care of, his European crew is being taken care of. From their point of view, they feel like they're being treated like they can't leave. It's like golden handcuffs. They can't leave. They're given food. They're given alcohol. Prostitutes and things like that. But like they're, according to Japanese society, they're like at the bottom lowest level rung. Like it's just like they are nasty people. And yes, you are correct. John Blackthorne is cleaner. He's standing taller. They even make a mention of how he's dressed. Look at you dressing like these savage, and he's like these girly robes and all that kind of stuff. Like take that off. Come back with us. And he's just like, get away from me. And he's being shown. He's looking at himself, how he looked, and looking in the mirror like, wow, did I really act and look and present myself this way? It's crazy. And yes, you are correct. He's even the actor Cosmo Jarvis in the recent television series. You see how um, his body language, I'm sure, is being reinforced by the director. How the Japanese peoples walk in very they keep their heads level as they walk around, so that their heads don't bounce up and down. There is a much structure and uniformity in the way they present themselves and walk into rooms and such. And he's kind of like, his body's loose and he kind of leans to the side, and and he's kind of sloven. Even as he starts to even get cleaner and like dressed up, you still see him like, there's a there the scene about the pheasant and the gardener being giving up his life, uh amongst the household he's walking in. He's walking across, like, he's not using the stone path. He's just walking across the moss. He's walking through the sand. He doesn't care. And then he realizes, like, "Hey, maybe I should respect this stuff." And by the end of the series, he's able to sit in his own peace with other people, especially those of importance in his household. And he's able to sit with himself and just sit and listen to the rain and look at the garden and be centered in amongst himself. There's also something else brought up in the television show, which I really like, known as the eightfold fence. Now, I don't know. Let's type this in: eightfold fence. Um, and the eightfold fence, according to the show, let's see. According to Mariko, the eightfold fence is an impenetrable wall within oneself that Japanese people are taught to build from an early age. A safe place at the back of the mind where people can retain their individuality and control even individuality and control, even in the darkest of times. And so, essentially, what the meaning of the Eightfold Fence is, it's a coping mechanism taught to young people in Japan that allows them to retreat emotionally into a walled off area inside the self. And while from the outside, Blackthorn thinks that everyone's like emotionless and they don't care, what he realizes is that everyone has emotion. And in the show, the subtlety of the body movements and emotion is shown. But from an outsider, we just go like, damn, are they dead inside? They're dead eyes. They're not moving or anything. But really what's happening is they have layers upon layers of this eightfold fence, so that when someone's husband must kill their child and themselves to end their bloodline, her emotional reaction is muted. Not that she doesn't feel it, but within the culture, she's not allowed to show that she feels it. And so she is given assistance by others who also have their own eightfold fence in terms of keeping the fence up. And so that is presented very much in this culture. And I feel like when it comes to world building, that in the beginning, players may not understand why people do a thing and then realize, no, 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 they're just like you and I. They just have a practiced ability to navigate in a place where normally from an outsider, we would have maybe an emotional response or a knee-jerk response or something. But these people accept it, which an example of that would be like classic. Here's a classic thing. Players come to a place and they're being told that there's a dictator, very violent dictator, with their very violent enforcers. But when they get there, it's all peace and tranquility. And much of that can be attributed to a version of the eightfold fence, especially in modern day dictatorships where people can be punished for the things that they say and do. And so what happens? The players are greeted with smiles and joy. And there's nothing wrong here. I don't understand what you're talking about. And the players are like, yes, but there's an open square with like the dead bodies and blah, blah, blah. We understand, but this is just part of our culture. We accept these things. And no, they don't accept it. They're just putting on a straight face to get through it. And it's possible that the players may need to navigate or pierce through these eightfold fences to get to the true meaning. I would dare say that eightfold fencing is done amongst people who believed in a faction's goal and now realize that they made a decision both psychologically and or physically or socially to fall in with one faction and realize their ass don't want to be here any longer. In a modern day context, that would be falling on a political side, falling into a gang or criminal organization, a military, falling into or not falling, but joining a military styled organization, a religious organization where you in the beginning, everyone's like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I'm gung ho, right? And then they start doing things, and you have to put in a artificial face that you agree with them, even though internally you go, "This is you." You're smiling. You're like, "Smile, smile, smile." This is fucking bullshit, right? F this, right? And unfortunately, we do this sometimes to the extremes by agreeing with a position, so we are safe from the repercussions of not agreeing with that position. Because much like the individuals here in this fictional historical Japanese story in Shogun, uh, it can mean death by looking around and going, hey, everybody, wake up. What we're about to do is some bullshit, right? And I don't agree. And we actually get to see that through one character who's very funny, and we should hate him, because he's pretty despicable, but the actor is great, and the character kind of is a little bit of comedy relief, even though he's pretty dark, and that is Yagushibe, who is the most European personality individual who is pure Japanese. Like, he's the one that lets the rest of us look around and he's like, I ain't committing seppuku. I'm not giving up my life. This is some bullshit, right? Now, he doesn't say it like that, but he very much is like, I'm the only way I'm gonna be safe is if I rise up in the ranks, and I don't care who I have to backstab to get there. I'm doing it. And it's pretty funny because there's other people who are looking at him that want to say it out loud, like, you are really dishonorable, but because of the eightfold fence in the culture, they can't say it out loud to him because it would be dishonorable for themselves to bring it up. So he's kind of getting away with behaving in the way that's not part of the culture because the culture won't accept the fact that it's really weird, and he's running a fine line up until the very end of the show, and he has a really good story arc that parallels in opposition. He's very much a blackthorn outsider in a world where he knows nothing but the internal mechanisms, and it's pretty funny. So yeah, many people put on bold faces. I would dare say we talked about Fallout, the video game, and of course the televised series of Fallout, how this false front 1950s retro futurism of smiles and everything's going to be coming up roses and whatnot, and if you just behave well, everyone else thinks you should behave well, and then we always have these fake smiles and stuff, but really there's this darkness on the outside, and it's the same exact thing, right? It's like watching your favorite echo chamber news station and go, like, whether you are, I'll bring it up, whether you're like a Fox News, hardcore Fox News, or hardcore MSNBC watcher, and you watch it and you go, yeah, they agree. I agree with everything they're saying. And then suddenly they say something or do something, and in the back of your mind, you go, I'm a logical person, and that sounds like bullshit. But then you say, well, can I say that out loud to the other people who really are like scooping this up and eating it? Like, do I want to agree with, because I agree with part of that, but the reasoning behind, I don't agree with that other part. And so there is a lot of that. And I like the idea of navigating player characters having to navigate, like, okay, well, everyone's smiling and happy, or everyone is agreeing to a thing, or no one is stating the obvious. But what happens if we do state the obvious? And that could be in fantasy, that could be monsters and spirits and magic and seek the secret police, people telling on you because you are acting out of sorts to go tell the authorities to then come down and punish you, and very much foreshadowing maybe the player character sees someone else who's acting in the way they feel they want to start acting, and they see what the punishment is and they go, ooh, maybe we shouldn't. The darkness of the United States back during the heyday um, of our racial inequality, there were people who were very friendly, dare I say, even having uh, romantic and sexual relations with people from across the tracks of a different ethnic persuasion or something, and those relationships were looked down upon, and so the terrorism and the murder killing of those individuals sent a message to everybody else: don't do it, because this is what's going to happen to you if you go do it. And so then what happens? People start behaving in a manner, they go, oh shit, like, I don't agree with this, but fuck, I don't want the attention. And they might murder, kill my family, and set fire on my lawn, and setting, crosses on fire on my lawn. I'm gonna just go along to get along because shit, I don't want to be part of that. And unfortunately, what happens is that actually reinforces the very behaviors. It's like the snitches get stitches thing, which I think is a bunch of bullshit, because um, the person who will get snitched on is the one that benefits. Everybody else just gets shat on. Because it don't benefit me. It only benefits me not to snitch because I'm the person that's going to get like punished by it, right? The other person gets to get away with a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's those kind of behaviors. Um, I also want to say that the pomp and circumstance of Shogun is really cool in the sense of when we get to learn the social strata of the culture and when and where the players can or cannot do a thing. Meaning, like we learned that our character Blackthorn can honestly say most things to our lower status people are so low that for the most part they're ignored. So they get to say and do a lot of things. I mean, yeah, they keep their head down and they keep their nose clean, but for the most part, they're just average people and they have average conversations and do average things. And they're, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to go around. Now, as you go up in higher strata, you got to be careful who you know and do you threaten? Do you use uh, do you use hidden threats and things of that nature? And it's really interesting how the higher level you go, the more the less words and actions people take because everyone knows that the moment they make a declaration of any type, others are supposed to jump and make that thing happen. So oftentimes, especially our main, dare I say, backed into a corner Toranaga character, he often gets up and walks off to the side and just stares off into the distance. And there's people sitting there bowed down and waiting, and just like, is he going to say something? And then he'll say some simple proclamation, and everyone's like, you like you didn't have to. All you had to say is jump. Now my job is just to ask how high, right? Um, it was pretty interesting kind of thing. I think if I can go over, since we're here towards the end of the episode, let me do a laundry list of some great things we can take from this as well for tabletop role playing, and that is the importance of accoutrement, weapons, clothing, those things. I think sometimes we don't put that much emphasis on it. And when I say the emphasis, especially with weapons, we in role playing games, come on, there's despite the fact that we do have a number of role playing games, especially in the indie scene, that are non combatant, we love ourselves some run and gun. And so there are characters who are denoted by having these, well, weapons on their waist. They're carrying swords. And those swords are symbols of status. And if we think about it, they're also, these are lethal instruments everyone is carrying. And we are to assume that not only are they carrying it, but they're very good at using the damn thing. And that it is also not useful. We know that it's a possibility that at a moment's notice, you may have to use it on yourself. So when player characters go into a place and they see everyone is armed, um, side note, um, I found out that because I never knew why some or many of the Japanese warriors, the samurai, had a shaved head, a patch of hair that was shaved, and not everyone had the exact same shaved patch. Some had a circle, some have the patch that goes all the way back to the head, some didn't have it at all. I was like, what? Why do some have well, come to find out that, and how much of a truism this is, I don't know, but come to find out that it was for practical reasons. Some individuals, you needed your helmet, your warrior, and your warrior garb, especially your helmet, to fit snugly on the head. And to do so, sometimes if your hair was long and very well kept and such, it might be a little too slick for your helmet. Maybe your helmet shifted around. So to ensure your helmet never twisted and turned and things like that, it made a secure latching as the ropes came around your chin and held down. And so they would shave a part of their head to get that like suction, I'm almost thinking of it like a suction cup effect. I'm sure at the time they didn't have plastic, but you get my point. And so To see someone have that shaved part of their head meant that they took their warrior nature seriously, which also let everyone else know they got a shaved head, they got swords, their asses know how to use that damn thing. Right. So one led to another, led to another. I remember when I was taking martial arts and I began looking at people's knuckles because we would do part of our training was we would hit makawara boards and of course we wear pads and things on our hands, but many times we either do bare fist striking, and we would another thing we would do is we would do push-ups on rocking forward on our forward two knuckles. And what would happen is they would spread and flatten. And I don't have them anymore, but I do remember getting like a little bit of a callousing effect. And then we rub like tiger oil on it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But so that you wouldn't get the dry split skin and the bruising and the callousing that would where you wouldn't be able to have flexibility. But there are many martial artists that have those first two knuckles, and I would start looking at them and go, oh damn, look at their knuckles. Oh damn, they do a lot of push-ups on their knuckles. They do bear striking. Oh damn, they're probably pretty good. So it was one thing leads to denote another thing, and it could be player characters. Maybe they notice individuals doing something with their trigger fingers with high energy weapons. Maybe there are burn marks on the hands or chest or right under the neck because they're using high energy weapons, and that's the way they hold these weapons up, and that high energy, I don't know, sends off UV light that tans the skin, and having that weird tan against the chin or the forearm or something means that they've been in a lot of battles because they've been firing this weapon a lot, and it heats up or it sends out some strange waves or something. Or maybe they see someone who's got like wraps or is applying some kind of medication on their forearms. Why? Because x-rays from the x-ray laser rifles that they use in the society go through the flesh, and that means there's skin bubbles and it's kind of dying off a little bit, and they're constantly doing these rad baths, and they're like, holy shit, there's like 35 people in the rad baths, and we're not in any place with a lot of radiation. That means that radiation is coming from their weapon systems, which means these people are badasses. So I say this to say that sometimes something very simple very much could lead to something far more, to give our players some evidence as to the dangers, the lethality, the character's capabilities. Something I really liked from a indie game, and I want to say it's Mothership, but it may not be. But anyway, but if I'm wrong, I don't care. The role playing game Mothership, and I did a review of a version of it called Dive. In Mothership, for your character, you assign and describe a badge on the uniform of your character that describes your personality and your skills. And when the characters meet other people who have multiple badges on their character, and in Dive, it was tattoos. So you describe a tattoo on your character, and that tattoo kind of describes who you are, what you can do, whether you're the pilot or you are a navigator or you're a scientist or something like that. And so this badge denoted for your character. So if someone comes on your starship in Mothership and they've got 6 badges, that meant that mechanically in the game they could be 6. They have 6 ranks higher than your beginning character, if that makes sense. And I thought that was a great visual representation of an in-world element. Like maybe I'm just making this up, and I don't know whether this would ever be true. So everyone carries a sword, and around the sheath of the sword are these red intricate knots, thread that is wrapped around and threaded around the sheath of the sword. And maybe someone who has 6, 7, 8 of these intricately woven threads that are knotted in a specific order lets you know, well, maybe in my D20 game, those 7 knots denote a CR7 or 7th level character, or they've been through 7 battles or something like that, and that would be a really cool in-world element for players to denote, to go, oh, 7, I bet they got 70 hit points, they're a badass. I don't know if I want to get a fight with this person, right? It doesn't need to be that clear, but it could very much be that way. Something else, some other things uh, in this world, when you start creating your world, especially when the characters get into physical confrontations, um, they offering the players other ways to solve a situation other than running and gunning. Uh, you know, they have a situation that they get into, but they want to be able to. You want to give your players multiple opportunities to resolve a situation. We don't want you turn the corner and see an ogre. Okay, roll initiative. What you want is you hear noise, you smell something, you hear a conversation. Oh, it's an ogre. The ogre is chasing a deer. The ogre is drinking one of the 3 stolen barrels of mead or something. Um, Give the players the opportunity to enc- give them a real encounter that feels lived in your world, and then let the players decide how to act and or react to that situation. If they're on a starship and they are surrounded by a Star Ranger patrol, and they scream at them and say, "Shut off your engines. We're going to board you now." Let the players go, "Okay, you can board us. We're just going to hide our shit, but you can board us." Or we want to outrun them, or we want to parlay with them, bribe these individuals, maybe threaten them or whatever, and let them decide how to solve the situation and get out of the situation. And that means that being open with the idea that instead of predicting what the players will do, and this is a skill I think all game masters across storytellers, flame tenders, whatever, across all games should learn. And that is not only present problems but don't present solutions. So how the players come up with a solution to the thing, don't say to your head, yeah, but I wanted this to be combat, so no matter what's non-combat solution they come up with, I'm going to ensure that there will be a fight. Instead of doing that, what you do is you don't learn what the players might do, you instead know what your encounter will result in. And what it means is, what's the motivation? Maybe all the ogre wants to do is, hey Shinobi, hey, yeah, well, thank you. Of course you can catch it later, whenever you want to, or not at all. But maybe the ogre just wants to get drunk and stole the barrels of alcohol from the dwarves, right? Maybe the Starship Space Rangers were failed in 3 missions because, I don't know, pirates got away from them, and now they're just pissed off and they're willing to take it out on the very next starship that passes through this quadrant. And the players need to uncover, maybe this person's just a bit arrogant or upset, or someone lied to them and pointed the finger at the player character so that the other starship, enemy starship, could get away, and pointed the authorities at the player characters. Maybe they learn this. And so um, the anger of the starship of the space ranger captain and law enforcement, maybe they can be talked down. And hey, can we just have a conversation? Maybe they were just upset and they're, oh, damn pirates and blah blah blah. And the player's like, we're not pirates, we're actually merchant traders. Those pirates stole from us too. And like, oh really, they did? Maybe we can work together. So if you know the motivation of your own NPCs, if you know the ticking clock, the orbit of the storyline, and you know that the players are disrupting it or not disrupting what's going to happen in the future, then just let it play out. So if you're in fantasy and you know the personality of the dragon, then it doesn't matter what the players do. Just react. Do the players appease the dragon? Then the dragon's just not going to kill them. Or do the players do something that really pisses off the dragon? Then the dragon's probably going to be like, hold on, let me take a deep breath. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, guys, thank you very much for letting me spout out Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. We'll of course go on with other television shows and Fermi Paradox and uh, other things related to Obsidian Star. Yes, I still have my notes down. No, I haven't visited, written more things. I have to anyway. Guys, have a great one. I'm not going to take up to it. Hey, M squared, what's up? What's up? What's up? You know what? I don't like this design. I'm going back to this. I think I may even change the color back. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, have a great weekend. Very many things happening in my neck of the woods. So guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.